What up YouTube, Patrick here, and for a while I've been talking about making a video on why I completely cashed out of Bitcoin a few months ago. So here's that video. What we're looking at right here is a graph of coin dominance. So it's looking at the percentage of total market capitalization by coin. Total market capitalization, if you don't know, is just the number of coins or current supply times the price per coin. It's kind of an indicator of popularity or adoption. There's some problems with that metric, but it's relatively simple to understand and it's the best I've got. So anyways, if we look here, we see, as expected, that in 2013-2014, Bitcoin was at 90% plus dominance, and that makes sense. Cryptocurrencies as a whole were pretty new. Bitcoin was really the main one that people knew about. There wasn't many, if any, altcoins at the time, and the ones that were around, like Litecoin, had very little adoption comparatively. Now over time, you can see that this changes. Altcoins come on the scene and they gain more and more and more popularity, especially over the last year. I think as people become more familiar with the concept of cryptocurrencies, they start seeing, oh, blockchain and other currencies can solve specific problems, and they can maybe even solve it better than Bitcoin, so then they get into altcoins. And so with that, you see Bitcoin's dominance begin to drop precipitously. Look at this. This is a huge drop. Right now, it's basically at all-time lows, at 33% or so. I think it even hit 32% a few weeks ago, somewhere in here. And personally, I think this trend is going to keep going. So why? Why is this? What's going on here? Well, the number one thing is scalability. That's the problem that's causing this, in my opinion. So let's take a look at this graph. This is a graph of average Bitcoin transaction fees in US dollars. As you can see, in the beginning of 2017, we're looking at 40-50 cents or so, which is, it's not bad. But I guess if you're in a country with a weaker economy, this is probably already too high, too difficult to use. But anyways, for argument's sake, let's say that's okay. Now look at what happens here with the media frenzy in December when Bitcoin was all in the news, hitting 20,000 all-time highs. Everyone and their grandma was getting in. With everyone trying to use Bitcoin, boom, look at these transaction fees. Beginning of December, we're at, what, $6 per transaction, reaching as high as $55 per transaction. That's a problem. No one is going to spend $55 to pay for a $5 coffee. What's the point? That makes no sense. And that's not all. Now let's look at confirmation times. Here in December, the same kind of time frame, we're starting to see ridiculous confirmation times for Bitcoin transaction, getting to 1,000 minutes. No one's going to want to wait 10 plus hours for Bitcoin transactions. How are you going to pay for anything? You're sitting at Starbucks 10 hours later, your coffee's cold, everyone's gone. That doesn't work. And then here in the beginning of January, it gets even worse. I think it hits as high as 11,000 minutes. That's ridiculous. Of course, you can get shorter confirmation times by paying higher fees because miners want to make money. They're going to take the highest fee transactions first to confirm them. But for the average person, that's not a usable currency. That can never replace the dollar, the euro, whatever fiat currency you're talking about. So all this is why we saw forks like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Diamond, and all that, because one of the solutions for the scalability problem is increasing the block size. But that's just a temporary solution. The more people that use it, like if you're trying to be a global currency, you're just going to hit that limit again and again and again. So you need another solution. Bitcoin Core is trying to implement Lightning Network, which is essentially another layer on top of Bitcoin that provides infinite scalability. So if you want to pay some person using the Lightning Network, you open up a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, and then off-chain, you're able to do unlimited transactions back and forth. But the catch there is you had to pay the fee to open up that transaction in order to do that. Now, you could do it through another person, like say there's a bank. We're losing the decentralization aspect of cryptos here a little bit, but there's a bank that opens up channels to a bunch of people, and then you open up a channel to a bank, and then they pay the person for you, so you kind of go through a third person. And theoretically, that way you have infinite scalability. But it's not on-chain, it's not truly decentralized. You also mathematically can't run you can't run all transactions that way because the costs even then don't scale correctly. This article is a very great detailed mathematical explanation of that. But I guess the argument the other way, though, is that this at least alleviates the main, like you could do a whole bunch of repetitive microtransactions through this network and leave the main blockchain, the regular Bitcoin, for peer-to-peer or whatever. And that does make sense. But here we come to alternate currencies that already solve these problems without all this extra layer stuff. They solve it on-chain. First layer solution. That's where we're talking about like Ray blocks and other DAG coins. So this is currently overall transactions per second that Bitcoin can support, about 7 transactions per second. For reference, Visa does about 2,000 per second average to support millions of people globally constantly making transactions. And here's Ray blocks, 7,000 plus, theoretically infinitely scalable. Why is the difference so big here? The key is that Ray blocks' bottleneck is not an artificial limit like block size or time or anything like that. It's actual resources. There's no waiting for 10 minutes for a transaction to confirm, or for the block to get confirmed or whatever. It's instant. Essentially every transaction is its own block and they all get processed that way. There's no waiting for miners to grab that transaction, put it in a block, and then confirm it 10 minutes later or whatever it is. So IOTA is similar because it's another DAG-based coin. These technologies, though yes, they're relatively new, relatively unproven, they have great promise for solving the scalability issue. And we've already seen real-world stress tests of hitting 33 transactions per second, like in current production. They have tested 7,000 plus on testnet hardware or whatever, but in current production as it exists today, someone preloaded a bunch of transactions and sent 30 transactions per second worth, which is really massive when you look at compared to like Bitcoin and some of these others. He could have pre-computed a lot more transactions to push that number even higher. I think he hit a peak of like 200 transactions per second in real world, just existing network, no test nodes or nothing. So that's pretty impressive. Anyways, that was a lot of rambling. I hope I got my point across though. I don't think Bitcoin can compete even with Lightning Network with coins like this. It's possible. Plus it always has the brand name and first mover advantage. Everyone knows Bitcoin. No one knows Nano. I guess it's no longer Ray blocks, it's Nano. I keep saying Ray blocks, but Nano it's fantastic. Same with these other DAG-based coins like IOTA, Byteball. The limits are not artificial. They're not 10-minute block times. It's whatever the hardware can spit out. So if hardware and bandwidth and storage gets better in the future, that limit is going to go up. And it's just going to keep going. That 7,000 test was on current day hardware. That's very impressive for Nano. Nano. Anyways, that's all I got for you in this video. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know. Peace.